Hello, hello, hello. This is the Petty Politic. Welcome back to the channel. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome back. Welcome to the channel. Right. So today, I spent a good part of the day looking through some of these leaked pages that have been making the rounds online, and I think almost everybody's asking the wrong question about these pages, right? The internet wants to know if there's a client list. We know that there has to be a client list. There has to be a list, or these people had extraordinary memories to remember who owed what favor, what people were on tapes, video and oral tapes. There had to be some kind of list. So we understood that. The internet wants to know if they had access to this client list. Cable news wants to know whether there are more explosive files out there. Social media wants to know whether this anonymous source is credible or whether this anonymous source is lying about these excerpts. But after reading these pages, I don't think the biggest story is Jeffrey Epstein's story at all. I think the biggest story is that, according to this reporting, some of the most powerful people in the Trump administration were acting like they had a full-blown political emergency on their hands. So Donald Trump is allegedly making angry phone calls to Charlie Kirk. Dan Bongino is reportedly unloading on Pam Bondi behind closed doors. Kash Patel is allegedly trying to recruit Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson to help calm down the conservative base. But according to the reporting, there were people inside the Trump administration and around the Trump administration, the White House, trying to figure out how to stop the backlash of the Epstein files before it got worse. Now, you have to ask yourself one simple question. Why? Why were they trying to worry about a backlash if there's nothing on the tapes? Because the reason why they were trying to stop the backlash is because they all know there's something to talk about when it comes to the files and Donald Trump. This is why they were panicked about these emails or these excerpts or wherever this information came from. If there's nothing there about the Epstein tapes, if the most harmful stuff has been released already, if the administration has been completely transparent and there is nothing left to talk about, why is everybody acting like the building is on fire when the Epstein tapes came out? That is the story I want to talk about tonight. And before anybody says, well, where did this come from? Let me explain. What I'm discussing tonight with you all is not some top secret government document that somebody slipped under the door. These pages come from advanced reporting connected to an upcoming book from Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan of the New York Times. These are reporters. The book is reporting based on interviews with people who were inside the administration, the Trump administration, around the White House during the Epstein controversy when it first exploded. Like any political book built around insider sources, you should approach it critically, of course. You do not have to believe everything that was quoted in this book. You do not have to believe every conversation happened exactly the way it's being presented. But what you cannot ignore is the picture these reports regarding the people and their behavior in the White House. Because according to people talking to these reporters, The atmosphere behind the scenes was not calm as though as they presented it to the United States. It was not confident. It was not an administration saying the facts are on our side and this issue is behind us. It was a White House in disarray because they knew if the truth about the Trump or truth about the Epstein files came out, it would probably destroy people around the presidency and the president. According to these reports, it was the administration trying to figure out why its own supporters were refusing to let the story go, even after this administration pumped up the head of its base saying we would release the Epstein files. People kept asking the question when the Epstein files got released. Why is it people keep asking for the files, asking for the file? Nobody asked for the files in the Biden administration. Nobody wanted to know what happened during the Biden administration about these files because no Democrat cared about these files until Donald Trump betrayed his promise to reveal the files. Donald Trump said he was going to release the files. Nobody else said that. So when these files were about to come out or these files came out, everything mattered. This wasn't a Democratic hoax. This wasn't a Democratic thing that was revealed. This was something that was revealed because the president said he wanted it revealed and then reneged on what he said he was going to do. Okay? He wanted his reporters to let it go. I mean, his supporters to let it go, but they wouldn't let it go. So this is one of the first pages from this new explosive book from Haberman and Swan. This explains where the panic came from. According to this reporting, Donald Trump became furious after a Turning Point USA event turned into what he allegedly describes as a grievance fest. The reporter says that these people who were reporting, they said Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, and Megyn Kelly continue to press for more information about the Epstein files. And Trump personally, according to these emails, called Charlie Kirk up afterward because he was angry that the issue was still dominating the conversation. Personally, I think there's more to the Charlie Kirk story that meets the eye, but that's just me, and I can save my curiosity for later, for another day, in which I care more about it, but I don't. But Donald Trump personally called up Charlie Kirk and blasted him for allowing the curiosity or allowing the conversation to continue going on and on about the Epstein files. He actually called Charlie Kirk personally. He was furious after that Turning Point USA story or meeting. Okay. Now I want you to stop and think about who these people are. I never heard of a Charlie Kirk till he got shot. I never heard of Charlie Kirk till he got shot. So he must have been critical to the Trump administration for Trump to give him a call and say, you need to be supporting me when it comes to these Epstein files. That's when Charlie Kirk, and I remember seeing one of the videotapes of Charlie Kirk backing off of the Epstein files. No, there's nothing to see here. We don't need to do this. You all can go back and look at Charlie Kirk's change about the Epstein files. He deliberately, when the president gave him a call, he deliberately, I guess within a couple days, started saying, there's nothing to see here. We need to support the president. We don't need to talk about the Epstein files. Charlie Kirk had changed his mind about the Epstein files because he got a call from Donald Trump. Okay. He got a call. Those phone calls and the text, etc., lets me know that these people know more than they let on, and it's a lot of hypocrisy with the right-wing media, and there's a lot of grifting going on in that movement over there because they understand exactly what the president is guilty of. They understand exactly. The president calls up Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk does a 180. Charlie Kirk does a 180 after he talks to the president. But I digress. Okay, so Charlie Kirk is one of the most influential organizers. He was one of the most influential organizers in the conservative movement. And Tucker Carlson reaches millions of conservatives every week. Megyn Kelly has become one of the most listened to voices on the political right, even though she's a grifter and a scammer, and you're being scammed by most of them because they understand how very terrible Trump really is. But, they got to make money. These people are not trying to destroy Donald Trump. These are people who helped build and sustain the coalition and the aura and the mystery and the lies around Donald Trump. So if this reporting is accurate, the administration was not fighting Democrats over the Epstein story. It was fighting its own side over the Epstein story. Okay? They were having a meltdown on their own. Had nothing to do with, had nothing to do with us Democrats. Okay? Let's just keep going. And honestly, that makes perfect sense if you think about how this issue developed. Okay? For many years, people in the MAGA movement believed that a future Trump administration would expose things previous administrations had hidden about the Epstein files. They believed there would be transparency. They believed there would finally be answers that the establishment never wanted the public to have. You can argue about whether these expectations were fair or unrealistic, but you cannot deny that they existed. They became part of the movement itself. So when supporters who had been expecting answers were suddenly told there was nothing more to release and everybody needed to move on, some of them were naturally going to ask questions about this. According to these reports, that's exactly what happened. And that is why Trump was allegedly making phone calls behind the scenes to right-wing media saying, you need to cover for me. You need to make sure that the people don't go off on me. You need to make sure that I'm covered when it comes to any kind of secrets that may be happening about the Epstein files. Okay. The problem was that the Democrats were not criticizing Donald Trump. They had no intention of releasing the file. They had no access to release the files. The files were still under investigation because Ghislaine Maxwell was still doing her appeal to get out of jail. She had gotten sentenced, but she still was appealing it. So her file, the case file, was sealed from being released. That's why the Biden administration didn't release the Epstein files, because they were still under review. They were still under investigation during the Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. So people keep saying the Democrats should have released it. They didn't have the option to release it. They were under investigation. Okay. The problem here was the people who had spent years defending Donald Trump. Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, I forgot who else it was. Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson. They were told to say X, Y, and Z. Don't continue to talk about the Epstein files, because we're trying to bury these files. They kept saying, trust us, trust us, trust us. They were lying to the American people. Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, they were all lying to the American people because they knew there was stuff in the file. They know there's stuff in the files. They know that. This memo is the first sign of panic. Okay. I actually think there were a lot of commentators who missed the point. They kept asking whether these leaks proved there was a cover-up. I'm not making the argument tonight that the leaks prove there's a cover-up. I personally believe that there's things in the Epstein file that the president doesn't want leaked out to the public. Has nothing to do with who's in the files. They already understand that Trump is being blackmailed somehow, some way. I don't know. I'm simply looking at the reaction of the Trump administration and how they reacted when the Epstein files came out. Because if the administration truly believed the Epstein situation was settled, why was the Trump administration reportedly trying to stop its own friends from talking about it? If there was nothing in the files, if there was no big deal about the file, why was the Trump administration trying to stop people from talking about it? People who think they're winning an argument do not usually call their friends up and ask them to stop talking about stuff. That's not what the heck was going on. Okay. Number 2, the second email. Let me put the second email up here. What was it? Okay. The second email. Okay. Wait a minute. Hold on. That second email, where is it at? Let me see. It was a second email with Dan, Dan Bon Jovi. Okay. Dan Bon Jovi. This may be the most revealing part of the whole inserts that were released. According to this reporting, Bon Jovi, I call him Bon Jovi, Bongino, became furious after the Justice Department announced there would be no further disclosures related to the Epstein files. Maybe Bon Jovi was not privy to what was in the files. These excerpts claim he confronted Pam Bondi. Okay? Of behind closed doors and accused her of mishandling the entire file situation. They described an argument over the promises that had been made to supporters and the expectations that had been created by the Trump administration, their handling of the Epstein file. What I find interesting is not the colorful language that Bon Jovi used. What interests me is what the argument was about. According to these inserts, according to the reports, the fight was not over whether the public deserved the truth. The fight was over the fact that the administration had a credibility problem. People had been expecting one thing from this administration and were now being told something very different. That is a political problem, not a legal one. And credibility problems often are hardest. Those are the hardest ones to fix because they don't come from your opponents. They come from the people who believed in you. The reporting goes on to claim that Bon Jovi and Kash Patel thought Bondi should take the blame. Whether that's exactly how it happened or not, the broader pattern is hard to miss. Trump is allegedly frustrated with Charlie Kirk. Bon Jovi is reportedly frustrated with Bondi. Patel is reportedly frustrated with Bondi. According to these reports, everybody is trying to figure out who should carry the responsibility for a controversy that is growing larger and larger by the day. These are excerpts behind the scenes of things people were saying and doing when the Epstein files came out. This does not sound like an administration that thinks everything is fine. According to these excerpts, this excerpt right here, according to the excerpt, hold on. This is what happened. What did he say? According to Bon Jovi, Bongino said, "You fucked this thing up from the start, Bondi. The way you've been talking about this dumb shit, this dumb fucking charade with the Epstein files. They're on my desk. Nonsense. All the promises to the folks out there." They both said that Bondi needed to resign. Kash Patel and Bongino said that she needed to resign. Okay. His reaction was she needed to resign. Okay. It didn't sound like the administration was fine. It sounded like the administration was trying to contain that super duper political process or explosion that was going on. And that brings me to what I think is the real heart of the story. The people around Trump. The people around Trump did not appear to be worried about convincing the Democrats of anything. According to these excerpts, they were worried about losing the people that trusted them the most over the years, which was the base. That is why the next part matters. Let's pull up the J.D. Vance excerpt. Hold on. J.D. Vance. Okay, right here. According to these leaked reports, J.D. Vance recognized that the administration was taking serious damage, serious hits among the online conservative audience. You guys promised that you were going to release the files, you were going to do what you needed to do with the files, and you lied to the American people. That's the bottom line. This report claims Vance tried to help arrange an interview with Joe Rogan in the hope that it would calm down the backlash and reassure supporters about the Epstein files. Think about what that means. The vice president of the United States was not reportedly trying to reach MSNBC viewers. He was not trying to persuade people who had already made up their minds against Donald Trump. According to these reports, he was trying to convince the conservative podcast audience, okay, the conservative podcast audiences and independent media followers from turning against the administration. That's an entirely different kind of political problem. It means the concern was not about external attacks. The concern was the movement itself. The MAGA movement itself was beginning to fracture over an issue that many of his supporters expected would finally bring transparency. They had no intention of being transparent. And if you spent years telling people that you're one of the political movements willing to expose the truth, you cannot be surprised when those same people expect you to live up to that promise. In many ways, this Epstein file controversy was built into the movement itself. That's what he ran on. That's what you all believed. As a MAGA person, you believe the president was going to be transparent. The president is anything but transparent when it comes to these Epstein files. The more you encourage people to question institutions, the presidency, the Senate, and demand accountability, the more likely they are to eventually ask those same questions of you. I believe this Epstein file was the crack in the MAGA movement. That appears to be exactly what was happening here, and it continues to happen here because the bubble got broke. The bulk of these MAGA people, the people that were on the periphery, the people that were on the sidelines, the people who were sort of MAGA but weren't MAGA, who were Republicans but they weren't really MAGA, I believe this is what turned those people against Donald Trump. Now, if it was simply about releasing the facts and letting the public decide, the story would probably end right there. But according to this reporting, the conversation inside the administration moved beyond the facts and into the world of political damage control, because they knew if the Epstein files were completely released, Donald Trump and that whole right-wing apparatus would be destroyed. Okay? And that brings me to the last page of this excerpt. The last page. Okay, where is it at? Okay. According to this reporting, J.D. Vance even floated the idea of Tucker Carlson interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell if she were willing to publicly state that Donald Trump had done nothing wrong. She can't do that, okay? She can't do that. She can't say that Donald Trump is not guilty of something because she knows he is, okay? She knows that he is. A PR gamut that the White House would enlist Tucker Carlson to interview Epstein's longtime girlfriend and co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, in prison. Vance believed it might help the presidency if Maxwell was willing to state that Trump had no part or did anything wrong, no part in the wrongdoing. Okay, that's what J.D. Vance wanted Tucker Carlson to do, to rubber stamp the lie that the president had nothing to do with the Epstein files, that the president wasn't in the Epstein file. He was a friend to Maxwell. He was a friend to Epstein for years and years. Of course, he's in the files. Of course, he has something to do with the files. Of course. Okay. Whether that was realistic or not, it didn't matter. He wanted Tucker Carlson, somebody, to interview Ghislaine Maxwell. Throw a Hail Mary, as it would be. Okay. According to the accounts to these excerpts of the book, the discussion was no longer simply about information. It was about messaging. It was about finding the right voice to reassure the conservative base. It was about trying to stop a political problem from becoming a political disaster. That tells me that the people involved believed they had a trust issue because they believed and they knew that they were lying about the president not having anything to do with the Epstein. Why do you think Todd Blanche is refusing to release the Epstein files again, the rest of the Epstein files? Because there's a problem with the Epstein file. There's a problem with Donald Trump in the Epstein files. Okay. And they wanted to stop the hemorrhaging. Unfortunately for them, they had two people, Massey and Ro Khanna. They had those two pushing for the Epstein files to be revealed. And it was just enough push to break the bubble of that foundation of the movement that Trump had going on. Because then people started, and the problem was, the bulk of the people that voted for Donald Trump, a lot of the people that voted for Donald Trump were not definitive voters. They were fly-by-night voters. He got fly-by-night people. This is how Donald Trump lost the coalition that voted for him in 2024. They just started falling away from him because they weren't solid voters. The MAGA movement is only like 20% of the voters in the Republican base. They're only about 20%. The country is middle left. The country is middle left. They're not center right. They're center left. Okay? And the MAGA movement is only about 20% of people. There are Republicans that are not MAGA. So MAGA is only about 20%. Okay. So when I finished reading these through these pages, right, I realized that if I had been thinking about the story it would have been wrong about the story. People keep thinking it's the Epstein file. It's not the Epstein file. It's the fact that these people were panicked when the Epstein files came out. I was trying to figure out what these memos proved. But I don't think it has the most important question in. The most important question is why so many people at the highest levels of government, according to this reporting, scrambled behind the scenes if there was nothing in the Epstein files. Like if somebody says to me, hey, TPP, we're gonna release your I don't know, medical records. I wouldn't be panicked behind them releasing my medical records because I don't have anything to hide. You only start panicking when you have something to hide. Why was Trump allegedly making angry phone calls to his own base? Charlie Kirk, maybe Candace Owens, maybe, I don't know, Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan. Why was he making paying phone calls to his people? Why was Bon Jovi reportedly exploding on Bondi, Cash Mateo? Why were people inside the administration allegedly looking for people to blame? And why was President or Vice President Vance trying to line up interviews with some of the biggest personalities in conservative movement? I think the answer is pretty simple. According to these reports, according to these excerpts, they realized they were no longer dealing with criticism from us as Democrats. They were dealing with the disappointment from the people who they trust, who trusted them, the base, the Republican base. And the disappointment is different. People are not disappointed by promises that were never made. People are disappointed because they believe those promises. Many of the supporters believe this administration would prove or provide a level of transparency that previous administrations had not done. When the expectation collided with the reality, the frustration was almost inevitable. Right to this day, that Blanche dude, that AG dude, the Blanche dude said, we ain't releasing no file. Why not? Why ain't y'all releasing the files? Because they understand that what's in those files will expose Donald Trump to the craven grifter that he is, craven scammer that he is. Okay? This is why they were panicked about the story, because they understand, yeah, you did some shit and it's in the Epstein files. The FBI, the CIA, whoever investigated the president down to his toes from years back. They understand, and they investigated Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. They understand exactly who and what this president is, and they didn't want that coming out. I'm not saying these pages answer every question about Epstein. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they prove every allegation that was ever been made by him or about him. What I'm saying is that they give us a reported glimpse. These pages give us a reported glimpse into how the people who were closest to Donald Trump were reacting when they realized that this issue about Epstein had gotten out of hand and it wasn't going away. According to these excerpts, they were not worried about what CNN thought. They were not worried about what Democrats were saying. They were worried about what the people who voted for them, defended them, trusted them, were beginning to ask and what questions they wanted to have answered. And they knew they couldn't answer these questions. And if these reports are even partially right, this is what explains the angry phone calls, the arguments behind closed doors, Bon Jovi, Donald Trump calling Charlie Kirk, the frantic discussions with J.D. Vance trying to get interviews so he can get in front of the camera. That's the most shiesty, slimy human being that I've ever run across. Bar Donald Trump, him and Vance. They wanted to manage the message because this political movement built on the promise of exposing secrets found itself being accused by its own supporters of lying and withholding evidence. So they were no longer fighting people like me as a Democrat. They were fighting the expectations of the people who voted for them. Okay? So that was the real story. They knew they were lying to the American people. They know that they're lying to the American people, specifically the MAGA base. They understand what they're doing. They understand the damage that they have done. They understand it. They understand that one more reveal that they went too far over their skis. They understand that. This is why they're panicking now, trying to make sure or try to ensure that they win the election, stopping people voting, purging voter rolls, changing the districts, gerrymandering. Right now, Trump is talking about election fraud in California. The Pratt guy is a reality star, failed reality star. Spencer Pratt is a failed reality star. And they're propping him up like he's the next thing since sliced bread. No. Okay? No. This has been an experiment that we did not need to have. We did not need to revote or put Donald Trump back in the office to understand that we would have a person that would forget all the norms and forget all the traditions and forget all the things that were needed to for us to keep our country together. We didn't need to vote for this man. Now we see the damage that has been done, and it's going to take years to get over it. This Epstein file did damage the Trump administration. It did damage it, and it put the cracks in the armor for the people who were not dedicated MAGA. This ran them off. It ran them off to the hills. The rest of us were all in the hills watching, and it's been going downhill ever since. So it's not about this book that's coming out. It's a book that's coming out written by Haberman and Swan of the New York Times. It's a book. Okay. Yeah, it was for January 6th. It was for me too. For me too. The turning point for me was that January 6th too. I get all of that. The whole point is the book is coming out. It's describing how panicked the White House is behind the scenes when it comes to the Epstein files, because they understand how explosive though. I don't give it. Here's the thing. I don't give a damn that Bill Gates is in the Epstein file. If he's in the Epstein file, I don't give a damn if he is in the Epstein files. I give a damn that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. Most people give a damn whether Donald Trump is in the evidence. We don't give a damn about some prime minister in Timbuktu. We don't give a damn if they in the Epstein files. We give a damn whether Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. And the Trump administration knows that. And the Trump administration he keeps saying, they said one time, Donald Trump said, I don't want these files revealed because my friends it'll expose my friend. No, we don't give a damn about your friends. We give a damn about whether you're in the files. And you know that you're in the files. Donald Trump is a selfish, narcissistic human being. He don't give a damn about nobody but himself. So when he said, all my friends are going to be hurt if you reveal the Epstein files, I don't believe him. He's the one that's in those files, and he's the one that's going to be revealed. So when they say Epstein files, we don't want to release them because people might no, you don't want to release them because Donald Trump is in those files. Donald Trump is in those files. And it just is what it is. We just have to live with the fact that he's in the files, and you have people like Blanche and Bondi and Bongino, you have and Patel. You have all these people covering up for the president because they don't want the president to look bad. They just don't want him to be totally revealed as a scammer and a narcissistic person that he is. He's already revealed who he is. He's already revealed that he got into the presidency so he can enrich himself and his family, which they have done by $2.3 billion. So we already understand who he is. But I think whatever's in the Epstein files is on a whole nother level of corruption or degeneracy that they don't want us to see the president as. So therefore, they don't want to release those files because it's worse than what we think. I don't know what it could be, but it's worse than what we think. So if you like my commentary regarding this book insert, and the Epstein files, please hit a like and a share. I appreciate it. I'm usually here at 10 o'clock, but I don't know what the hell I was doing. No, I know what I was asleep. I was asleep and I forgot, and I completely and utterly forgot. And, because I'm tired and it just is what it is. And I normally am here at 10 o'clock, and I promise you I will be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock to do the normal time show. And please hit the like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you. I appreciate the new people and my old friends who come back and to support me. And I will see you in the next video tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.